Welcome to the Labyrinth Cup edition of Not a Meta Simplified. A bit later than usual. I've had this graphic done for about a week, but I've just been too busy, too tight to get it up, so it may not be as useful as previous ones that have been out or other guides that you may have seen. But in actual fact, this is more like a sort of hard done my team anyway, so yeah, hopefully you'll find it interesting. I'm going to start by saying I think GoStadiums did an incredible job with their snapshot off the meta. There's just so much going on in this meta. To visualize it in the way they did was just incredible. So huge props to everyone who was involved in that. But where I started, where I usually start in team building, is at PvP Steve's video, because and I have no disrespect here, but I feel like a lot of people look at PvP Steve's video and go, right, I love that. And so I like starting there because I know what I'm going to be competing against. Like if I have a look at Steve's video and see that there's a mon that beats 5 out of 6 things there or whatever, I'm going to start with that, and that's what I've done here. I mean, I initially thought, based on what's always popular and based on what we see in GBL at the minute, I thought we'd see teams with many teams with at least 3 of the 4 of Vigoroth, AWAC, Politoed, and Rolling Ninetales. So really, I wanted to find something that broke open that core. And of course, that's those 4 mons on Steve's infographic. Well, Politoed isn't, but Wishcash is kind of similar. So yeah, so I actually started here with Jellicent, because not only does it beat AWAC, big Ninetales, and it sort of goes nice and even with Politoed, tends to win, but it also picks up Registeel, generally beats Regirock and Melmetal, which of course just beats the dark types. So I thought, right, I'll build around Jellicent. And what we'll see here with this graphic is, so along the top you'll see the columns are going to work as sort of slots in a team, right? So in this first column is my pick, and then the next column will be a Vigoroth or potential Vigoroth alternatives that I will need to worry about because of my pick. Second column will be Ghost, for the most part. Frostlass is a bit later on. Third column Water, fourth column Ice. And I've put Frostlass in there for now. You'll see why in a bit. So Jellicent, I thought, we'll start with that. It has to worry about Obstagoon in the Vigoroth slot. It has to worry a bit about Drifblim and other Jellicent in the Marowak slot. Has to worry about Pelipper and Castform in the Politoed slot. And it has to worry about Abomasnow and Dugong and Frostlass a bit as well in the Ice slot. And for the most part, Vigoroth beats all of these. Vigoroth being an amazing pick in this meta anyway, so it made sense for me to go with that. I kind of thought. So things I'm still weak to now. So I'm now weak to, well, not weak to, but I now have to worry a bit about Toxicroak and Escavalier in the Vigoroth slot. I still have to worry about Jellicent and Drifblim. Still have to worry about Frostlass, but I'm now less worried about Pelipper, Castform, that sort of thing. And then I've added on things I'm worried about, which sort of beat both. Galvantula, Venusaur, and Tropius. You'll notice that I've put them in the same slot because I feel like it's very difficult to run Galvantula and a grass type, because we'll see a lot of AWAC. We'll see a lot of Ninetales, which, you know, Galvantula doesn't really want to take it on, and there's Regirock knocking about, which will take on Tropius nicely. Teams that don't have Marowak might have
Ninetales, regular Ninetales. There's a lot of them running about, so I feel like it's difficult to run Galv with a grass, especially if you want an ice type. So I wasn't too concerned about seeing both of those. So they're in the same slot, and that slot sort of acts as the core breaker slot, I guess, for my core. If we say my core is Jellicent and Vigoroth, not as tight a core as other cores out there. We've seen people talk about Skarmory and Wishcash. We've seen Tropius and Regirock, just two off the top of my head. Marowak and Zweilous, good one as well. Mine does have more common core breakers, but if I'm saying that those core breakers are Galv, Venusaur, and Tropius, I think I'm quite okay being weak to those mons because Vigoroth can quite comfortably flip Venusaur and Galv with a slight energy lead, and I'm not too concerned about Tropius because it's regional, and so not many people will have it, and it's quite exploitable with all the ice and fire as well. So I'm quite happy being weak to grass at this point. Also, Mandibuzz and Zweilous are sort of things I want to worry about a bit now as well. Certainly Mandibuzz, because Vigoroth isn't straightforward against it. And then I noticed that most of these things lose to Mandibuzz. I suppose we'll see here next to Mandibuzz. Things I'm now worrying about are Obstagoon again, Castform again, the Ice types again, and still Frostlass, which is why Frostlass is in with the Ice types. Mandibuzz will comfortably take on the other ghosts. Mandibuzz will take on the Venusaur and the Tropius. And between having Mandibuzz and Vig, I'm no longer too worried about Mandibuzz. So Zweilous is now the issue. The issue that I'm most concerned about in terms of dark types. Outside of Obstagoon, of course. Yeah. So then I thought, Regirock picks up the ices nicely. Picks up Galvantula really nicely. And referring back to the top, it beats Marowak and Ninetales, which is what all of my mons I want to be able to take on 2 of them minimum. So it takes on, it beats Marowak and Ninetales. It's iffy against Vig, not terrible against Vig. And as bad as it is against Politoed can't take the piss out of it because Stone Edge does 50%, which means that it will 2-hit KO. And it's only 3 turns slower than a Weather Ball. And of course you can tank one. So Politoed can't overfarm versus you, so it's not a disaster there. Doesn't beat Obstagoon. Well, it'd be iffy against Obstagoon, but you've got Focus Blast, haven't you? I'm a bit worried about Pelipper, but again, it's not an awful matchup there. Worried about Castform. I've not got a Castform counter yet properly outside of Vigoroth. Now worried a bit about Wishcash because obviously Regirock and Jellicent. Sorry, this is Stunfisk. Sorry, is the big one. Regirock, Jellicent, and Mandibuzz all struggle versus it. Galvantula's still there. Wishcash doesn't want to. Regirock don't want to get stuck against that. And I've still not really addressed the Zweilous problem. So then I noticed all these were kind of weak to ice, apart from Castform. And so the Abomasnow weakness was quite an interesting one. So I quite liked Abomasnow because I like having a grass type here to deal with Stunfisk, given that my team is currently quite weak to Stunfisk. So I was quite keen to squeeze Abomasnow in But given that I have the slight weakness to Abomasnow, and I certainly have a weakness to Obstagoon, I needed an ice type that beat both of those, and there was, that existed. Alolan Ninetales was there. I think Alolan Ninetales is really good. Beats the Obstagoon, but I still feel quite weak to it. Beats Drifblim as well, which is always nice. Bit weak to Jellicent, still weak to Castform. Beats Wishcash, but I have to worry a bit more about Quag because of the Stone Edge. Beats Abomasnow, as we've said. Beats Wishcash. I'd always be happier being Ninetales than Galvantula in that matchup, so I'm going to say it beats Galvantula. And of course, it absolutely walls Xylus. So Xylus is gone. Also picks up Mandibuzz, which is nice. As does Regirock, in fact. So the Mandibuzz weakness is now looking much better. But it opens me up to Regirock a bit more myself. So I've got Jellicent, which can sort of take it on. Vigoroth, which for the most part takes it on. I've got the Mirror, but now I've got an Ice type. The way I've gone about building this team so far is quite presumptuous, in that I presume I'm going to see teams based around this core of counter, ghost, water, ice, secondary Vig counter, flex, that sort of composition. And that doesn't include charm. And one thing I'm always keen on doing is avoiding being weak to charm. And the way I've gone about building this team, it shows me what I'm weak to, but it doesn't show me what I haven't got answers to, if that makes sense. Like, I'm assuming that because I'm not actively weak to something, that I perhaps don't need a hard counter for it. And that's true. Like, up to now, we're seeing things like Skarmory, right, where Skarmory hasn't made an appearance on my sort of threat lists, because none of the mons I have are particularly weak to it. But I don't really have a proper Skarmory counter apart from Regirock. But Mandibuzz, Vig, Jelly, and A9 sort of all hold their own versus Skarmory. So that's one example. I think Charm's another example. And so with that in mind, and given that the things I've sort of decided I'm being most worried about here are Obstagoon, Jellicent, Castform, Quagsire, Regirock. I think I'm looking at this now. Maybe I should add Stunfisk into that list as well. I feel quite weak to Stunfisk, very weak to Stunfisk, in fact. And I'm conscious of the charm weakness. Venusaur was the sort of last pick that I wanted. I played around in this slot, and this is the slot I'm least sure about. So I also quite like the idea of Therathorn with Mirror Shot for taking on Powder Snow, Alolan Ninetales. And I think I would have done had I been confident that no one was going to run any other counter users other than Vigoroth. I think I'd have gone for Therathorn. But the fact that we were seeing Obstagoon, Toxicroak, Escavalier just made me a bit more concerned. And of course, Escavalier still was Venusaur. Toxicroak is fairly even. Generally, people think that Toxicroak beats Venusaur comfortably. It's not comfortable at all. As far as I remember, anyway, it certainly doesn't feel it from when I've been in that position as the Venusaur. But yeah, if it was going to be just Vigoroth, I don't mind Therathorn versus Vigoroth, because with a counter, with a bullet speed advantage, Therathorn is winning the 0, so you're taking a shield. You're taking the shield from it. But yeah, I just thought Venusaur was the lower risk, all around the most sensible choice. So there's the team. And it's been going well. I feel like I've been playing reasonably well. I've had a couple of games where I've just dropped the ball completely and yeah, just not played well at all. But generally speaking, I'm quite happy with the team. I've started, at the time of recording, I've started 5 tournaments this month. 2 have concluded. I got a 5-2 in London, which I didn't, in London's finest, which I didn't leave the box ticked on, because I want to leave that open for the showdown. I wouldn't ever forgive myself if I did well in the showdown and wasn't able to 10x it. So I'm going into the showdown, and I think I'm going to make a change. Based on the fact that we're seeing a lot of Regirock, we're seeing more Toxicroak, we're seeing a lot of Pelipper, or more Pelipper than I was expecting. Between Toxicroak, Pelipper, there's a couple of other things as well. Toxicroak, Pelipper, Stunfisk, and I can't remember what it was. Anyway, Toxicroak and Pelipper and Regirock are sort of the main things where, yeah, Venusaur counters Regirock, but it doesn't resist Rock. And yeah, I've got Ninetales and Regirock and Mandibuzz that will take on Pelipper, but it doesn't really deal with them. Toxicroak, I've only got Jellicent as a hard counter. And these things just caused me such big problems that I think my team building has been a little bit too presumptuous here, maybe. So I'm going to change up the Venusaur slot for, I think I'm going to go with Stunfisk, to shore up the Pelipper matchup, to shore up the Regirock weakness, to shore up, be a bit stronger versus Toxicroak. It's not awful versus Vigoroth and Obstagoon, so it's still it's not making me any weaker in those matchups. It's less reliable versus the water types, of course, because it's weak to water. But cast form weakness is there now. But I just feel like I'm seeing more Pelipper than cast form, and certainly I'm more scared of Pelipper than cast form. So I'm going to show that up, and of course there is the Galvantula weakness, which I would quite like to deal with as a bit harder as well. So I'm going to change it for the last one in the month, I think. Don't quote me on that, but I think I'm going to go for Stunfisk. Quite early on, I didn't really rate Stunfisk. I thought with all the weather ball used running around with Vigoroth, Vigoroth and Obstagoon, Stunfisk doesn't hit hard enough to justify being that extra bit slower than most of them, than those things I previously mentioned. And it's not really bulky enough to. It's bulky, don't get me wrong, but the amount of times that extra bulk isn't quite enough to live the next charge move or to reach the next charge move. It seemed to be happening quite a lot where I was giving up energy because of the extra bulk on Stunfisk, where I was being farmed down because Discharge and Mudshot don't really hit hard enough to force shield pressure or to make the opponent worry about taking them. So I didn't like Stunfisk initially, and it's certainly not something I'd build a team around. But given the way this team has evolved and the way the meta's going, I think it could be quite handy in that last slot. So I will imagine for anyone who's following the showdown results, or certainly anyone who's going to watch the showdown video that I most likely will make, unless things go horribly, horribly wrong, I would imagine you'll see Stunfisk there. I'm not expecting a crit deal from the showdown. I'd snap your hand off for 2 wins out of 7. But we'll see. Sometimes things just line up right, don't they? yeah, quite excited nonetheless. But yeah, so I hope you enjoyed. Bit of a different one this month, but that's how I built this team. Not revealing any movesets. There are a few choices that were made, but you'll see them if you watch the showdown video. So yeah, catch you later.